Greetings to all our distinguished viewers and lovers of the continent all over the globe. I remain my humble self, Comrade Tolo Daniel, the host for the postcard program Vision for a New Africa. It is a fact that we can never travel without where we have not been able to travel within mentally and subconsciously. The progress of a people is a significant reflection of the most dominant thought and intellectual capacity of their mental ability. And today we are talking about what it will take for us to get our prosperity as a people. The economic prosperity of the African people is our major topic. Now, when we say we cannot travel without where we have not traveled within, what do we really mean? How are these things really affecting us? There are several ways some of these things affect us. For example, let's look at our educational system. On a fundamental term, what is education? Education is an act of feeding the mind with valuables and superior knowledge that aids good and very wonderful outward transformation. That is what education is supposed to be. The act of transforming the mind for effective productivity. But when we look at it from our nursery to our PhD level, as far as our educational curriculum is concerned, the curriculum lacks the ability to teach the average African child with the right kind of knowledge that is supposed to enable the child to think in the sense that I am supposed to build my home to become second to no any other home in the world. But rather, what are the content of this curriculum? The curriculum is designed in such a way that it is always educating the African child and pointing to the African child that the best of everything is outside. That the best of education is out, the best of medical tourism is out, the best of sport, the best of industrialization. Everything the curriculum is designed to teach the average African child is to show them that the best of everything is outside. But the truth about it is that imagine if we have a curriculum whereby even as a primary school, the curriculum has an ability to be able to convince the average African child to believe that he or she is supposed to build his or her home to become second to any other home or race in the world. Then we'll have it the way it ought to be. A man traveled to a desert town, a very strong desert town. When he got to that desert town, he discovered that for each of every compound he visited in that town, they had 2 or 3 lively fresh trees in the desert. So when you meet a set of people who are growing trees in the desert, now you can imagine the effort it would take for them to be able to accomplish this. And he was marveled. And he was looking for answer on how these people were able to grow these trees in the desert and what is the motivation behind. And eventually he met the leader of the place, and when he asked them why are they growing these trees in the desert and how are they able to do it, so the leader of the place made him to understand that growing trees here is part of their spirituality that qualifies them to be able to see their creator when they leave this earth. Based on how they were taught by their ancestors. The ancestors taught them that any man that is not able to grow 3 trees at least in his lifetime in this desert, when they die, they will not be able to access heaven. So, and every man wants to go to heaven. So in respect to that, everybody was trying to do all they could do to make sure that they grow these 3 trees so that they could access heaven. But truly, was heaven really the goal why their ancestors said this principle? No. They know that oxygen is very, very important wherever you are. And they know that from simple science, it is trees that produce oxygen and humans produce carbon dioxide during the daytime. So they needed to bring an ideology that would kind of like propel the people and put them in the path of them creating and building this tree that can give them enough oxygen and they came up with this ideology and they really correlate it with their spirituality. Now, when we look at how things is going in the continent, we'll get to discover that yes, over the years, we have progressed in line to some of the strongest thought in our mental subconsciousness. I do tell people, I say, when you look at the religious leader, there is no need for fighting them or abusing them, but I think we must learn from them. Because after the oil and gas industry in the continent, the second most largest industry is the religious industry. Now, for these men to have been able to build these industries to this extent that they have been able to amass wealth in this industry and make it to be the most second largest. Imagine if all of the wealth in that industry was a wealth that was mobilized for our sole purpose of economic prosperity of the continent, for us to go deeply into industrialization, production, mechanized agriculture, and the rest that can give people skills and jobs. Imagine the amount of skills and jobs that will be available for our young people. Automatically, when the right men are leading such cause, this place will become heaven on earth for them. So we must learn from them. We must learn from them. Now, looking at how things are going, we cannot leave these things to be flowing alone. These men have independently built these systems, and that is why we are calling for all lovers of the race globally, both at home and in the diaspora, to come together so that we can look together, we can copy from these men, we can learn from them and see how we are able to put modalities and see how we're going to annex our intellectuals to put everything together that we ought to put together for us to mobilize these resources, for the mobilization of the resources for economic prosperity to become the strongest, the second largest, maybe even the first to beat that of the oil and gas. So that because when we are economically free, when our people can get job and the right skills they want right in their home, then by then they can experience heaven on earth. So that is what we are saying. We must come together. And at this point, I must give kudos to my global leader, the president of the United Pan-Africanist Movement, Comrade Engineer Benedicto Mbago, for setting up this integration program as a solution to this economic problem that we are talking about. For several years now, we have been talking about Pan-Africanism, talking about African history, the people who did this to us and the rest, that we cannot continue to stay in self-pity. It is time for us to harness our intellectuals and see how we can mobilize resources and start channeling things into our own economic prosperity independently. Because if we can create that economic system where people can get the job, most especially our young ones, the job and the skills they need, even the political system will be controlled by us. Because the current politicians have weaponized ignorance and poverty. So no matter what you say, no matter what you do, we can never transform the African society when the weaponization of this poverty and ignorance is still on. So you must create an alternative system. A bad system will always beat a good man. But the best way for a good man to fight a bad system is not by fighting the bad system per se, it's by focusing on building a new system that will make the bad system absolute. That is how these things work. They work by principle. Now, when we create the economic system that we can give people job and they require skills that they need, do you think any politicians can go and meet them in the back and be sharing for 500 and 1,000 naira and allow them to sell their conscience and vote for the wrong person? No. It is poverty, ignorance, and hunger that makes these people to take this advantage. So kudos to the global president of the United Pan-Africanist Movement for bringing this integration program. And as time goes on, we are going to be giving details on what this economic program is all about and how we can harness to ensure that things are being followed and things are being done properly in a way that can make the whole of this project to come into reality. We can never travel without where we have not traveled within. It is a reality, and we are tired. We are tired of lamenting. We are not the only race. There are several races that have passed through what we are passing through. The Arab race have passed through it. The Chinese race have passed through it. You need a very higher sense of intelligence for you to be able to apply and dispose this thing. Truly, as Africans, we have progressed in the line of the most strongest thought in our mind. And what is the line of the most strongest thought in our mind? All through these years, we have been taught, most especially when it comes to salvation, that by doing the work of God, how do you do the work of God? You contribute to the building of God's project. You do all of this, you do all of that before you go to heaven. And we are saying the future has come whereby we must tell our people that the part of the criteria for going to heaven is also economic freedom. Part of the criteria for going to heaven is for we contributing to the economic progress of our people, our children and unborn children. Any race that is not able to contribute and build this economic independency will not make heaven. The future has come. And when we teach our children and unborn children this principle, definitely things are going to change. When we make them to travel within by this ideology, definitely they will travel without with this ideology also. When we must educate our children and unborn children to understand that a very strong aspect and criteria to see God Almighty is by contributing for us to develop and fight to attain our economic independency. If we don't have that as a race, even God Almighty himself will not be happy with us. Looking at the abundant resources he has put beneath our soil, looking at the arable land he has given us on top. Look at what the Arabs are doing. They don't have agricultural land to farm. Yet, through aerophotosonic agriculture and irrigational farming, they are farming wheat that can feed the third of the world. Intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. We must teach them to understand this. Economic freedom is part of the criteria that is needed for us to get our absolute salvation. No man is going to live forever, but a man has two duties on earth. Number one is to love his creator by loving his fellow human being. Number two is to fight and build a better future for his children and unborn children before he leaves. Our economic freedom is also a key and a strong criteria to our salvation. This we must teach our children, this they must teach their children, and this they must teach their unborn children and children. Thank you very much. God bless you.